Hello there. This will be a 5-minute tutorial on how CleWin works. First, on the left, you can see a set of tools that can be used to manipulate objects, and there are tools on the top that you can use to manipulate your mask, and there are tools on the right which let you work with layers, which are especially useful when you have multiple overlapping designs in your mask. To begin with, let's just create a new file and you can change the visual aspects by going to view. In the background you can either choose a white background, or I'm more comfortable with a black one, so I choose that. And let me now demonstrate some of the most important tools in CleWin here, which is first the grid setup. Because how CleWin works is on the principle of a grid. So if I zoom in like very far into the mask, I can see these small yellow dots. I can change how far the yellow dots are spaced by changing the grid spacing. So if I've decreased it, I have dots every 25 microns. So every numerical unit in CleWin is always in microns, and that's something very important for us to note. So what uses a grid? A grid is very useful because all vertices in your mask have to sit on a grid point, and you can adjust this grid spacing depending on how big your features are. For example, microfluidics does not require you to use more than features that are more than say or less than say 10 micron, because that will go into the domain of nanofluidics. So let's start working with a 50 micron grid spacing, and I'll show you how you could probably create a small nice microfluidic meander. So by clicking on this ruler here, you can actually create something which are called grid lines. And grid lines are especially useful because they make it really easy to lay out your design as well as snap your design to the grid. For example, if I this is the icon that I use to insert a rectangle. This one I can select any object, and this one I can edit the vertices of objects, and this I can insert polygons, wires, circles, arc wires and rings. I can insert text to say what my design is going to be about, and I can also insert script objects. So without further ado, let me first put in a few rectangles. So I mean, your rectangle could be like this. Your rectangle could be like this, but I mean, as I've probably mentioned before, macrofluidics is a very precise science, and you need your dimensions to be very accurate. But when you're drawing a rectangle like this, you do not exactly know what the width is, what the height is, where this rectangle is spaced. So one way to do that is to right click it, select properties, and you can see the specifications of this rectangle. But a much easier way is to first draw the grid lines in at the positions where you want your object to be, and then just draw your object within it. So you can see that it actually latches onto the grid line, so it's much easier to draw an object. So I mean, it latches on in a small um, in a small region around the grid line, which is what makes it really useful. So I just have 1 more minute left, and I'll demonstrate the other objects to you as well. A polygon, you could just select different points that you want to be a part of the polygon, and then you can just right click and it finishes the polygon for you. A wire is something more interesting. You can actually right click a wire, go to wire settings, and you can select the width of the wire that you want to specify, whether it will have a round or a flat end. For example, this has been set to 500 microns, and this is a round end. So this is what you get. If I change the wire setting to flat, I get something like this. If I change the wire setting to 100 micron width, I get something like this. So this would be the first part of the tutorial that tells you about CleWin in general and the different objects in CleWin.